The second critical component in your butterfly habitat is water. I know that might sound redundant, but I do have to mention it because it's very important. Plants need water. Water How will you make sure that your plants get watered? Are you going to hand water your plants, like with a garden hose? Or do you have an irrigation system, a drip system, or a sprinkler system? Or are you just going to rely on rainwater? There are other options, and any of the above are fine, but it's just when you're planting a garden, we definitely need to make sure that you have sufficient irrigation. Water is the most critical element. Water is the most important part of establishing a plant in your landscape. So, assuming we're going to be adding new plants to your landscape for your butterfly garden, we want to make sure that you have a way to water them regularly. Trees require larger amounts of water than smaller plants. And if you're planting trees in your habitat, it will take a whole lot longer for trees to get their roots established than it does maybe a small herb. A small herb can take as little as a week to get established, but a tree might take several months. And that has to do with the temperatures outside, the heat, and how fast the plant can grow and what type of season it is. But I just want to point out that if you don't have water in your habitat, it's going to be challenging for you to keep the plants alive. Now, obviously, butterflies are animals, so they need water too. But butterflies don't need us to do anything special as far as giving them water. They will get their own water. We don't have to, put out buckets of water for them or anything like that. But it is important that the plants are well irrigated. I mentioned earlier that you could keep your plants in pots, and that's fine. Containers are fine. But I just want to make the comment that generally speaking, containers dry out faster than plants that are planted in the ground. So if you have opted to create a butterfly garden using containers, that's fine. Just make sure, especially, that you have irrigation plans for those plants, because on hot sunny days they will begin to wilt, and if the leaves start to wilt and dry out, the butterflies will not be able to use them effectively. Also in this photo you can see mulch. Mulch is something very helpful for plants that are planted in the ground to help retain moisture. Not only that, but it also helps to guard against unwanted weeds. So this is a part of my yard in Florida, and you see I do have some plants in containers and I do have some in the ground, but I do utilize mulch to my advantage. Another thing to consider is native plants. Now, there are people who are very, very passionate about native plants, and I appreciate that. I don't happen to be somebody who gardens exclusively with natives, but I will definitely say that in many cases, not all cases, natives can be easier to take care of because they are better adapted to the area. Now, when we say the word native, we always have to use a geographic area that goes with that word. Because if I just tell you that oaks are natives, you should be asking me natives to where? When we use the term native, we're always tying it to a place. So when I tell you to garden with natives, what I'm saying is wherever you live, find plants that are native to that place. And often those plants are better adjusted to your climate, and so you might not have to water them as much because you might be able to just rely on the natural rainfall in that area, which are what the plants have evolved in your area to become used to. When it comes to butterflies, though, they do not have a preference of natives or non-natives. And that's actually a very controversial statement. Some people on the garden side of things will try to say that butterflies have preferences, but I can assure you from an entomology standpoint, they do not. Insects are opportunistic, which means if they can use something to their advantage, they will. And in some cases, some of the more exotic plants to an area might grow faster or have a better chemical makeup than the natives. And so the butterflies, for instance, in my yard, very often choose to lay their eggs on the exotic plants instead of the natives. Even though in some cases they could very well raise their or lay their eggs and have their babies on the natives, sometimes even with those two plants side to side, they choose the non-natives. So I'm basically saying it in terms of water conservation. It might be to your benefit to use plants that are native to your area. Thank you for watching this segment. I'll see you in the next one.